Hey guys, I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Whether you're watching this in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening, I'm glad you're here. Quick shout out and thank you to the channel members. Thank you all. I appreciate you more than you know. And anybody who's found their way in here to check out my knife and EDC content, I appreciate it. I know your time's valuable. If you're so inclined and you haven't had a chance yet, if you'd hit that subscribe button and that bell notification icon, it would really help me out. So today we have got another one of those kind of different top 10 type of knife videos from my collection. And this is going to be the top 10 knives that are older, like not fresh knives that I've had in my collection for well over a year, but knives that still get pocket time, that still stand the test of time, that I think are all still really good knives that I enjoy carrying and I enjoy having in the collection. And starting with number 10, we have this Artisan Cutlery, Servius Designs, I believe, Arion. And I don't know if you can see this, but it's got this really nice light milled titanium pattern, titanium frame lock, titanium clip. You've got that same micro milling on the show side, and then you've got this stone washed S35 VN blade that is super thin stock. I'm a huge fan in the Arion and the Artisan Cutlery. I've got the full sized as well. On the back spacer here it just says Artisan Cutlery. And guys, it is slicey, splinter digger pokey, and just a fantastic little knife. It's got great action, takes up very little pocket real estate, is a flicker only deployment knife, i.e. it just has the thumb hole, so you can of course slow roll it if you want to, thumb flick it if that's what you're into, or like me, middle finger flick it, front finger flick it, which is how I used to open knives. I can't even do it anymore. But coming in at number 10 on 10 knives still in my collection that are older knives but that are still super functional, serve a great purpose. Number 10 will be the Mini Artisan Cutlery White Mountain Knives exclusive Arion, which will take us on to number 9. And number 9 was probably one of the first 20-30 knives I acquired when I started collecting again. And this was a knife that I'd seen, I think, on a Slicey Dicey or a Metal Complex video, and really liked what I was seeing. Again, at the time, I was only a flipper tab guy, which is the traditional flipper, right? That you can either light switch or push button. But I love this knife as a gentleman's folder early on in my collecting and still haven't been able to let it go. It's got a titanium clip, titanium frame, no micro milling, and then you've got this carbon fiber inset on this concealed frame lock construction. And it is S35 VN, and the clutch is, I forget whose design that is in cooperation with Kaiser, but you've got this nice belt satin blade, like a 3/4 inch flat grind, nice sheep's foot with a nice sharpening choil, nice front trigger. And again, for an office folder, a utility folder, kind of an EDC knife, it definitely fits the bill. It is a medium-sized knife, but it is, again, very minimalistic because the blade disappears into the handle, has a very small footprint, and I've always been a fan, and huge fan in this knife. And this is the Kaiser OG Clutch. Moving on, we come to number 8, which is another weird one, another minimalistic folder that I picked up early on in the collecting, I'd say in the first year or so. And this is a drop. They're now Qvist, but it used to be drop, D-R-O-P. and they did collaborations with different designers. And this is the Brad Zinker Dogtooth. That's his maker's mark, BZ Brad Zinker, S35VN. That's the drop maker's mark. You've got a titanium frame. You've got really nice carbon fiber scales on both the show side and the clip side. And once again, you've got the flipper tab only deployment where you can either light switch it or push button it. Either way, it flies out of there. You've got this really cool compound ground Wharncliffe blade, which the Wharncliffe has always been kind of a favorite of mine in terms of its utility. Not only is it very slicey, but more importantly, it's very, very pokey. It's a splinter digger. I think it's an elegant looking knife. It's got this nice stamped titanium clip, goes in and out of pocket very well, drop shutty, a small, medium-sized knife with a real narrow footprint that I like a lot. So coming in at number 8, we've got the Brad Zinker Drop Dogfish, or Dogtooth, one of those two, which brings us to number 7. Now number 7, I've got several different iterations of this knife. This is probably the V3, which is, whoops, I just half-hearted flicked it. The V3 is the Qvist, Jacob Lundquist Qvist Variant PE that's got the titanium handles with no liners. So what you've actually got there is you've got a solid titanium scale that's milled out for weight relief. If you can see in there, a lot of internal milling. I've also got the original variant PE that did not have, it came with G10 scales. I upgraded to titanium scales, but it had a steel liner lock, 14C, 28N blade steel. This one upgraded to 20 CV and the titanium handles. It's a super unique sway back, Wharncliffe, deep hollow ground utility knife that doesn't look imposing, but for an EDC knife is uber effective. Great slicer, a great cutter, a great office knife, great hiking knife, great EDC knife, really. It's on bearings, it's actually on skiffs, it's got drop shut action. You do have that flipper hole deployment, but you also have this top flipper, or this front flipper, based on that little tab that's sticking up right there. Whoops. But you've got the front flip, the thumb flick, middle finger flick, and just a unique knife that there's really nothing on the market that I've seen that even closely resembles it. Titanium clip, super light package, a great knife. A knife that I still cherish, still hang on to, still carry, and that's the Qvist Variant PE, which brings us to number 6, and probably one of the more understated, unheralded knives in my collection, both for value and for form and functionality. And this is the PMP User 2. Whoops. The PMP User 2 is a little hyper thin titanium frame lock with S90V blade steel, treated S90V because I got the black version. You've got this really smooth ergonomical handle, great access to this lock bar here, drop shut action, a top flipper that's very easy to utilize. And for me, not being a top flipper guy, you've got enough blade that you can easily middle finger flick it, even though there's no fuller, no nail nick. It just works, right? It's got the blue anodized hardware. Again, the wire clip, which I think makes it a joy in your pocket. Super thin blade stock. Super sleek little gentleman's folder, little EDC knife. That I'm just a big fan of. I do wish it had a little nail nick or a little something in the blade, so I didn't have to just depend on my finger. That's the only thing. I'm not a top flipper guy, so that's one of the reasons that doesn't excite me too much. But yeah, it does all the top flippy stuff. It's got a really nice choil built into the handle that kind of intersects the blade here. Has a pretty good sharpening choil. Could be a little better, but you've got a sharpening or two in there. And again, for this kind of knife, it's not going to be something that I wouldn't think, having to regrind, sharpen too much. But it is coming in at number 6. It's from PMP Knives, and it is the User 2. Coming in to number 5, we have, guys, another Kaiser that was a very early Kaiser to my collection, but also one of the first real, I would call it at the time, premium gentleman's folder. And this is the Kaiser de la More. No, it's not. It's the Kaiser, hold on, it's not the Gemini. It's not the Delorme. It's the Kaiser something. I'll put it in the description, guys. I can't think of it right. Yeah, it is. It's the Genie. So that's what the GE is right there. So this is the Kaiser Genie in S35 VN. This beautiful, beautiful shred carbon fiber that has only a lock bar liner. You have no liner on the show side, which makes it an extremely light little office gentleman's folder. Just to give you an idea, it's right over a 3-inch blade, 2.2 ounces. So it's a very light package. It's a very nimble package in that it's thin. The handle or the blade disappears almost completely in the handle. You've got this nice little titanium clip that gives you good retention. You've got this micro milling on where this scale is kind of contoured out there a little bit to give you a little softer edge. And then you've got this really well designed front flipper for somebody who hates front flipping. Drop shut action and a deployment hole that fires for days. And then super thin reverse tanto blade steel, S35VN. So for a knife that's small, kind of understated, light, and gets the job done, and is designed very well, from the sharpening choil to the belt satin flat grind to the little kind of triangular deployment hole that just makes it really easy to get a finger in there on a small knife. Just a great little package. And this one will stay in my collection because I really like it that much. Coming in at number 5, we've got the Kaiser Gemini, not Genie, Gemini. Number 4, probably one of the weirdest looking knives in this collection, or in this little tin, but this is also a drop. You can see the drop logo there. So it says drop design. Well, it's Ferrum Forged design, I'm sorry. It's a Ferrum Forged designed, there's the drop logo. S35VN, super filthy blade because it's been cutting. You can even see how much cardboard it's ripped through there. Probably needs an edge on it. But it's called the Buck, B-U-C. It is a very small frame lock. You got this blue titanium smooth scale lock bar, drop shut. You've got a flipper tab that works very well, and then you've got an amazing middle finger flick hole. This blade, no matter where you hit the hole, it pops out the detents great. This blade is ultra unique in that you've got a fantastic finger choil, and it really grabs your finger in a lot of different places depending on how you're cutting with the knife. But just an absolute laser beam. And again, for a gentleman's folder, i.e. work knife, i.e. just EDC knife, the drop Ferrum Forge Buck is a banger. I love this knife. I know it's funky looking, but trust me, what it makes up for in cutting and in ergonomics, it can lose a little bit in looks, right? But it's a badass little knife, and this is the Drop Ferrum Forge Buck, which brings us to number 3. Number 3 is the economical Rosie. There, I said it. Lefty did a review 2.5 years ago about this knife, comparing it to the Oz Machine Company Roosevelt. At the time, I hadn't spent any considerable amount of time with the Oz Machine Company Roosevelt, which is definitely a grail knife. But this knife, this is the Asher Knives Nomad, or Spiro, with the deployment hole in full titanium with an S35 VN blade. So you've got this nice stonewashed S35 VN blade, great sharpening choil, fantastic ergos on a very small, medium-sized, bug-out sized, EDC sized, elegant titanium package. The action is to die for. The edge is like a laser beam. Drop shutty. Doesn't have the best access to the lock bar, but you don't really need it. You do have a little bit of chamfer right there on both sides, so I just go in straight for it. Some people might see that as a gripe. It doesn't really bother me because there's so much that this knife gets right. You've got a reversible deep carry clip. You've got T8 hardware, and then you've got the actual design itself, which is just, I mean, to die for. It should be higher than number 3 on this list. It really should, but it's not going to be because the next 2 are also bangers. But coming in at number 3, we've got the Asher Knives Titanium Holy Spiro, which brings us to number 2. Guys, number 1 and number 2 were tough. I'm telling you, they were tough. This got number 2 only because it's a little bit thicker packages, but it's probably one of the coolest packages in my collection. It's a carbon fiber integral. So you've got this one piece of carbon fiber that's been milled out. You've got this stainless steel plate because it is a bar lock / axis lock. It's the Tuya Big Belly. And what you'll notice here is it's got a big ass belly. You've got this nice satin ground M390 blade. This is a Michael Gavik design. It's got some of the smoothest deployment of any bar style lock I've ever used. And this knife has made a return to Tuya knives in a budget model. So this knife's available in G10, a little less blade steel, for under 150 bucks. This guy, when I got it many years ago, was right around a $300 knife. But that's what you were paying for an integral M390 at this type of trim, this type of package. But it's just a fantastic in-hand feeling knife. Has a great 3/4 deep carry clip, not fully deep carry, but it's an elegant knife. Even though it's a little bit bigger and it's a little bit chunkier in width than the other knives we've looked at, it's still, because it is that integral, it's going to come in pretty light at 3.5. And that's for what I would consider a medium-sized, deep, big belly, slicey, hard work, thickest blade stock in this little rundown. Nice sharpening choil, just top notch. You know, it's a knife that I don't carry as much as I'd like to, but it's a knife that I don't let out of my sight because it keeps kind of a valued place in my collection. The Tuya Big Belly is a huge win, and coming in for this particular video at number 2, which brings us to number 1. Guys, there's been an upgraded version of this knife that I did not get because I still love and use this knife so much. This is the old school, the first Malory designs Phorus. So this is Dylan Mallory's design. It is OEM by Artisan Cutlery. You've got a carbon fiber show side with a real thin, if I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken. No, it's got a real thin steel liner on both sides, but you can barely feel it. S35VN blade, very thin package with a tall 3/4 back spacer, deep carry titanium clip. Amazing ergos. I can't stress that enough. That this knife feels so good, makes absolutely no noise cutting through that paper. I mean none. It's a laser beam amongst laser beams, and it's just exquisite. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's a great knife. I was interested when the one that looked like the Malory, but it wasn't, a Turris or something that came out, and then the Malory Phorus 2 came out. Really nice knife. Again, weren't enough changes in it to fill a void in my collection, because this one holds it proudly. It is just a great full size, get it done, cuts shit open knife, and it is the #1 in this list of old knives, like over a couple of years, old knives that still get a whole lot of love. That, not to quote or rip off Led Zeppelin, but these are a whole lot of love knives. They have stayed in my collection as a lot nicer, cooler knives, fresher knives have come. Knives have left my collection, but guys, these haven't. And there's no plan for these knives to leave anytime soon, because they're that good. They all hold kind of a good spot in the collection. They all hit well above their weight. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I can say except these are great knives. Some of them, like the Phorus, you might not be able to find anymore, but some of them, like the Dogfish or Dogtooth from Brad Zinker, is still on Amazon if I'm not mistaken. You'll still find User 2s every now and then, not to mention the secondary. But guys, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my crazy knife EDC content, go down this crazy weird journey with me. All I ask is please look out for the guy or gal to your left. Please look out for that guy or gal to your right. Please look out for each other. Go forward with love in your heart and choose debate, not hate. I love you all. Peace.